My my that mat that I put down out front, to like out front of the door, was so wet that I rolled it up and I put it in the storage thing, and it was on a tilt and it was drained into the bay underneath, and I was like, oh, yeah, can't put that there right now. Yeah, I just strap them onto the back of the RV and let it dry out. That sounds good for the fire though. Yeah, I wasn't even planning. I knew how important it was to the rain, for sure.
And welcome you all to our second teen seminar of the year. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to have Anthony Poponi here with us today. Anthony is the founder of the Focus on the 40 program and a happiness expert. His work is rooted in the applied sciences of positive psychology, leadership, and neuroplasticity. Did I say that word right, Anthony?
Sure did.
All right. Anthony's purpose is to help others refocus on what really matters. The key sources of lasting happiness come from the 40% right in front of us. This intentional refocusing on these simple sources of happiness will change your focus to the 40% that really matters. Happiness first, success in all things follows. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the introduction, Melissa, and I appreciate getting to work with Teen Volunteers in Action. This is my second time working with one of your chapters, and I'll be working with another one of your groups again on Tuesday. So volunteerism is close to my heart, and we'll talk a little bit about my past experiences with volunteerism as we go through today as well. And yes, I am the author of the Focus on the 40 program. We'll talk a little bit about what that program means or what that title means a little bit later. I'm also a keynote presenter and I host workshops just like this. I used to work for the Boys and Girls Club of Hawaii. I've been a middle school teacher. I've been a foster parent. And I've been a mentor as well. So working with youth is really close to my heart. So here's kind of where we're going today. We're going to be talking about meaning and happiness through lifelong volunteerism. And of course, volunteerism is core to what TVIA is sharing with you all and trying to get you to understand that volunteerism is more than just maybe checking a box on a resume or a college application, that there's a real true opportunity for happiness in that opportunity to volunteer. So let's talk about where we're going to go today in our time that we have together. First, we're going to talk about the foundations of happiness. I want to give you a little context on what's going on with happiness, and I'm going to talk about what's called the PERMA model of happiness that comes from positive psychology. Then we're going to talk about character strengths, and so we're going to help you explore, well, we'll explore my own character strengths today, and then you'll have an opportunity to explore your character strengths as well. And I loved finding out about character strengths and how they're sort of core to what makes us happy and how we can find more happiness in our lives. Then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into meaning. So I want you to understand the purpose of meaning and what meaning can bring into your life and how those are intertwined with character strengths and, of course, volunteerism. And then finally, we're going to test your strengths. We'll do that as a virtual activity. Now, when we talk about strengths, this is not what we're meaning by strengths. And we have your video turned off today to maybe make it a little bit easier on that Wi-Fi signal. But that's not the strengths we're talking about. And if you're laughing, I want you to keep laughing. And you can use the chat today, A, to record your attendance, so make sure that you put your name in the chat. And then B, keep laughing, because it's hard for me as a presenter who's used to standing in front of groups of people to be sitting here in an office space and trying to have as much fun as I can presenting to you. So let me know if you have some LOLs out there and you can throw those in the chat. All right, so let's talk about why we volunteer. And we're going to talk about this for a little bit, and we'll keep kind of coming back to this as a theme because that's what TVIA does. And volunteerism is a really great opportunity for multiple levels of happiness in your life. It's an opportunity for you to see the values that you want to see expressed in your community. You can do that through volunteerism. It can be with supporting the homeless or working with animals or environmental restoration or social justice. Whatever it is, you can use volunteerism to make that happen in your community. And there's this really cool term that I like, and I want you to think about this and look for people in your world that do this. We call them co-creators. They're people that have a passion for something and they're not getting paid to do it, and they've just chosen to make something happen in their community that's important to them. We call them co-creators, and they need your support. Like most nonprofits, they need a budget to work with, so they need money. And they also need people. And so they need people to work at their events or volunteer for their service days, but they also need people to support them. And so think about those people that are in your community that come forward and say, you know, I really want to see this happening in my community. This co-creator is looking to do that, and I'm going to support that person. And you can be a co-creator yourself. So one of the other really cool things about volunteerism is that we all have our bad days. And one of the researchers out there, Dr. Sonja Lyubomirsky, says that volunteerism is one of those things that when you're having a really bad day, you can make your own day better by helping someone else that's suffering more than you are. It gives you a great opportunity to see the context of maybe what other challenges in the world look like, and then you do something good for someone else, and that always is key to happiness. We'll talk about that in a moment. And, you know, people volunteer for a lot of reasons. And, well, this pie chart may say why a lot of people volunteer. Yes, it looks good on your resume as you're trying to build your resume. But those other parts on this image that are smaller parts of that pie chart on there are really important. And if you're laughing because you think it's going to look good on your resume, throw that LOL in the chat for me. But volunteerism can help you figure out your career path before you invest in college or training. And you might think you'll love working with dogs and then decide, you know, I hate this. And well, this dog may give you an insight into why walking the dog isn't always maybe that much fun. And if you've experienced this before with your own dog, you know, that's maybe not the best way to walk a dog. And so you can decide, you know what, I just hate this. I thought I would like this. I would like working with dogs. Or you'd figure out that, you know what, I'm just bad at this. Like one thing that you thought that would be really something you'd excel at turns out to be something that you're just not good at. And I have plenty of examples in my own life. And it's okay for you to be bad at some things because you're going to be good at other things. And, you know, maybe you think that, oh, organizing fundraisers is something I'd be really good at, and I'm not. And if you saw Mr. Michael Scott, and you remember him from the TV show The Office, he organized the Dunder Mifflin fundraiser, and they spent more money printing out that big check than they did actually raising funds for doing something. And if you ever organize an event on your own, you realize they're really hard, and it takes a special set of skills to pull those off, and you have to be able to deal with stress. Or maybe when you're volunteering, you're realizing that you have a career field that you're wanting to explore, and you need more experience to get into that career field. Well, volunteering is a great way to do that. Volunteering in your career, your major, is a great way to demonstrate that you're really committed to that career, and it's great to, you know, put on your resume as well. But it's an opportunity for you to really explore that in your own way. So I'm going to talk to you today about 3 different organizations I've volunteered for, and I've volunteered for way more than that. But the 3 of these organizations provided some really good opportunities for me to explore in my own way what made me happy volunteering and then maybe what didn't make me happy. So let's talk about those 3 organizations and how I found meaning in my own life by serving other people. The first one is the Community Foundation of the Gunnison Valley. And I'm still currently a volunteer for the Community Foundation of the Gunnison Valley. They help do fundraising in the Colorado community where I live, and they raise money for other nonprofits. So they're a fundraising organization for other nonprofits. And I am a volunteer for them, but here's what I originally started doing for them. I started reading, reviewing, and writing policies for their governance committee, basically making the sort of regulatory environment within which the organization ran. Now, I have to tell you, I don't really like rules. I don't like really following rules, and I definitely don't like writing rules, and I definitely don't like reading reports like this long one that would be on your screen here. So that was a really bad alignment with maybe my interests and also my strengths. So that's example 1. Here's example 2. The Sea Turtle Preservation Society. I love sea turtles. And I used to volunteer for the Sea Turtle Preservation Society in Melbourne, Florida. They do these really cool nighttime beach walks where you actually get to see a sea turtle, like this loggerhead sea turtle here, nest on the beach. And I really like sea turtles, but I really only like live sea turtles. And this one on your screen is actually a dead sea turtle that was wrapped up, and you can see some fishing gear of some sort or some rope, and it killed it. And one of the things that I did was, when I was a volunteer, is I would respond to people calling in and say, hey, I found a dead sea turtle on my beach. And we would come out, we'd try to figure out what caused the death of the sea turtle. We'd report that to the federal government, and we'd take the body of the sea turtle off the beach and dispose of it. So my first volunteer duty was finding dead sea turtles, and I like live sea turtles. And well, I got to tell you that volunteer position stank. And I don't mean that it stank just because I didn't really like the job, but actually dead sea turtles actually smell really bad too. So that was a bad alignment with what I really wanted to be doing with sea turtles. All right, so number 3. This is a group in Hawaii when I lived in Hawaii called Hui o Ko'olau Poko. Hui means group, and Ko'olau Poko is a segment of the mountains on the island of Oahu where they have problems with invasive species of plants. And those invasive species of plants are really hard on the local ecosystems there. So my first job was to work with them removing those exotic species. And you would think this would be fun, right? Because I love their mission. They handed me a machete and a chainsaw, and I loved doing that until a few of the volunteers needed stitches, and then they took my new toys away. So it all worked out in the end with all 3 of these volunteer groups, and I'll explain later what I mean by that. So I promise you, volunteering will make you happy when you find the right volunteer role, and that's what we're going to be exploring through the rest of our talk and through some activities that you'll get to play with later. All right, so let's talk about happiness really quickly. Oh, I should have showed you this little chainsaw action going on there. So let's talk about happiness. So I mentioned that my program was called Focus on the 40. And why that is the name is because 50% of your happiness is sort of a genetic set point that you get from your parents. And then 10% of happiness in life is circumstantial, and it could be from things. And it doesn't really last. And then the important part here is the 40. And that's why it's called Focus on the 40, is that I want you to focus on the 40% of things that provide lasting happiness for you in your life. Volunteerism is a great opportunity to do that, and we'll explore why next. So the first thing here is when we talk about happiness, you need to understand what makes you tick. Human beings are unique, and they have a great mix-up of neuroplasticity that Melissa mentioned earlier that makes you you. And so you have to really first try to understand yourself and know yourself so that you can lead yourself, so that you can say, hey, I know what makes me happy. I know what lights me up. And once you have those things, then you can feel good about who you are, and then you can start to lead other people. That's why this continuum on here is like knowing yourself, leading yourself, knowing yourself, leading yourself. When you do that, then you can lead other people as well. Show them the gifts that you know. So what is it that we really know about happiness? Well, we know a ton. The positive psychology program started at the University of Pennsylvania through Dr. Marty Seligman has been around for almost 40 years now. And they came up with this well-being theory. And if you're in science classes right now, you know theories are pretty strong, right? They're usually validated by a lot of science. And the well-being theory has 5 different parts to it. We're going to walk through these in more detail, but there's positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. And we're going to walk through each of those before we dive into meaning more specifically. All right, so let's start with a quick definition on happiness. And I think this definition is really great. So I'll read this for you because it's a pretty long one. But happiness is not the absence of sadness, nor the soaring emotional heights of ecstasy, right? Those are fleeting. It's this happiness moment is this mildly pleasant, common but not permanent, and sometimes just includes satisfaction, maybe contentment with most aspects of life. So think about that. You know that these moments of sadness come in our lives. It's going to happen, right? It happens to all of us. And sadness comes, and then hopefully sadness goes. And then we have these moments of soaring emotional ecstasy, like presenting. I love presenting, so I have a lot of fun doing this, right? And this might be the highlight of my day, but it's not going to be my entire day. And I'm going to come back to these moments in between that hopefully are just moments that I'm just satisfied with and content with. Now we can shift all of those, and we can change kind of our happiness set point, that 50% that our parents give to us through genetics. And we can try to take those moments of ecstasy and bring more of those into our lives. Volunteerism is an opportunity for that. And then also make sure that we understand what things make us sad or what things bring us down, and find ways to get out of those quicker. All right, so there's that. So it's like a wave, and waves, you know, are not permanent. We just have to understand that about emotions. That's how they come and they go. All right, so let's talk about positive emotions first. So the first part of the well-being theory is positive emotions. And so it's about feeling good and feeling happy, not being stressed out or unhappy. But stress has a purpose, right? Stress is trying to say, hey, move away from things that make us feel bad and move towards things that feel good. That could be people, that could be opportunities, it could be relationships, it could be work, it could be your volunteering. So if your volunteering gives you positive emotions, move towards that more and do more of those things. And, you know, we get stressed out by life, and stress is a very normal thing, right? And so for a lot of you out there as teenagers, you know, these are some of the worst things that could happen to you, is that if your phone's not loading, or you have a really bad Wi-Fi signal, or your phone's about to die. And those are things that, can stress us out, of course. And if you're optimistic like me, then you know that optimism man here on the left says, I can defeat these things. I'll get through these moments. And pessimism man says, yeah, you know what? I probably have, my phone dies on me all the time. And that's a pessimistic mindset. And that's a hard way to get through life. And so we really focus on this positivity tool called optimism that's solution oriented, belief oriented, and also self oriented towards solutions. And you can control positive emotions and you can be more optimistic through rewiring your brain. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. All right, so let's move on to the next part of our well-being theory, and that's engagement. That word down there at the bottom is really the big thing. It's called flow state. Flow state are these moments where we like lose track of time, when we're happy and we're focused, we think and feel nothing, but we're fully engaged. And it doesn't necessarily feel like super happy at the time. It doesn't feel bad, but it doesn't feel, we feel almost nothing because we're just immersed in those moments. And then when we reflect back on those moments later, like, wow, I was really like, I lost track of time. That was super fun. I was really focused during that, and that was great. That's the engaged life, and that's part of engagement. And you can look to increase that by using your character strengths. And we'll come back to that, of course, too. So then relationships are huge, and volunteerism provides a great opportunity to have relationships. And relationships are really kind of everything, right? Having really life enhancing connections, people that bring positive things into your life. And honestly, when you have bad relationships, either fixing those relationships or getting them out of your life if they don't work for you. There's plenty of positive people out there in your life that can add value to what you do. And well, the well-being theory and positive psychologists summarize all of these things that we know about happiness into these three simple words: is that other people matter. And when we talk about volunteerism, it's usually to serve other people. Sometimes you may be working with animals, and so other animals matter too. But it's about other people mattering, that you really pay attention to the fact that other people out there need you to help them. And you're going to need help as well. And being vulnerable and accepting help from other people makes both people feel better, to know that you have a social support network from those positive relationships, and to know at times you do something great for other people and that helps them in their time of need. But that's a huge part of this. And so how important are these positive relationships? Well, this is Dr. Sonja Lubomirsky again. And one of the strongest findings in the literature is that happy people have better relationships than others that don't. Now, how does that tie in with volunteering? Well, with volunteering, you're very likely to run into people that care about the things that you care about. You're both volunteering for the same cause, so you both find happiness in those moments. Okay, the final part of our PERMA model, sorry, one more part of that, is achievement. So well-being theory says that when we're achieving things and we're accomplishing things in our lives, when we have goals and we achieve them and we see success and we're inspired to do more and we master things, we get good at things, we feel good about ourselves, and that brings happiness into our lives. So it's worth doing, and you can use those skills and achievement to see how you're serving another through volunteerism. And then the final part, and we're going to come back to this more, is meaning. So it's the meaningful life, right? Having passion, purpose, contributing to something bigger than yourself, something other than yourself, being fulfilled and being motivated to do those things. And we're going to come back around this. But people that have meaning are driven by a sense of purpose, and the world makes sense of them because they recognize their place in it and they're doing something in that world. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about meaning, and then let's tie that back together with your strengths. So the formula here for this is rather simple, right? It's about working with other people, and it's about using your strengths, and that's really kind of that formula for meaning. So let's explore that just a little bit more. So, when we talk about strengths, this is one of my favorite jokes out there, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, we've all gone through a lot in 2020. Give me an LOL in the chat if you felt like 2020 has been one of those years where like you've gotten so much stronger for it because you've had the opportunity to grow so much from that. Now, you just heard me use the word grow. Thank you for the LOLs. I see those coming in. But think about what's been going on. And if you need to do this, you can use your phone for this, and don't use your phone right now. But I do this quite a bit. There's a voice memo function in my phone, and I'm sure there's one in your phone as well too. Is that I look at what's happened to myself, and I look back every 2 or 3 months, and I try to just catalog what's going on in my life. And I'm going to give you a resource later that you can use for this, where there's really different pillars of your life that you can look at. How do you feel about your fitness and your friendships and your relationships, your career, if you have one already, that's great. How are you feeling about schoolwork? How are you feeling about your emotional status, all those things that we can look at, and you can score those from 1 to 10. And you can look back on moments that maybe in 2020 that were really, really stressful. And you've probably heard of this term, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? We think about the military as getting that from the awful things that can sometimes happen in combat situations. But what we find with people, and what we unfortunately don't share with people, is that you can grow stronger uh, after those moments. And it usually takes 2 to 3 months. And if it's something really traumatic, like a death of a close person, you probably need someone like a therapist to help you get through those moments, right? But for the rest of us, we experience bad things, like we lose a job, we lose a girlfriend, we get an F on a test. Any of those things can happen in our lives. And what happens in those moments that feels terrible, I'll give you an example in my own life. I had to put one of my dogs down 2 weeks ago. It was possibly the worst day of my life, to be honest with you. But I know that a couple of months from now, I'm going to be able to reflect back on that day, and having made a hard decision to not let my dog suffer anymore, knowing that I'm going to come out on the stronger side of that, I'll be able to make those tough decisions again in my life. So that's not what we're talking about when we're trying to use stress to make us stronger. We're talking about something called character strengths. So we're not talking about this kind of strength of core strength either, right? We're not talking about you being powerful and strong like Granny. Give me some LOLs here, if you thought that was a good one. I thought this was a funny joke. Um, we're not talking about that either, right? We're not talking about the body strength, and we're not talking about skills either, because skills and training are things that you can develop, right? Those aren't strengths either. And I like to think that I have skills in home improvement. Like the other day, my door for my bathroom, I put it on wrong. Actually, I didn't. The person that put it on before put it on wrong, and it was hitting the toilet when you would open the bathroom door. And so I tried to fix it. And I don't have a ton of home improvement skills, so that's how I fixed it. All right, so that is obviously not a strength of mine either. And in this case, it's not even a skill for me. So strengths are different. And strengths are the reason, thank you for the LOLs. And strengths are the reason, why you're awesome, right? Awesome then's in me. Coincidence? I think not. Right? And life's going to throw a lot of hard things at you. It happens all the time. It happens to everyone out there. We all have to go through these moments of struggle, a little bit of suffering out there, and hopefully nothing too bad for each of you. But you do have some really beautiful characteristics about you. And I want you to think that you're awesome, and I want you to find the positive things about you, because so much of the time we spend focusing on the negative things in us. We don't need to do that. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't make us happy. All right, so we all think we're awesome, and we are. And we're all unique, and we all have a superhero within us. And sometimes that superhero or superheroine in our minds looks a little different in real life, like for this hero here. I don't think that's Gal Gadot. And keep in mind that the mix of our unique strengths are unique. And what makes a hero unique in the movies, right? You think about the hero skills of Wonder Woman, they're really different from other heroes, right? And the superheroes can't do everything. Let's do this real quick. Open up the chat. Tell me on the image on the right, all the different heroes that you see in there. I'm going to open up the chat real quick and read that off. All right, we got some LOLs in there. Who do you guys see as heroes? Don't give me a number, Grayson. Give me, you don't know their names, Franco. Somebody hasn't been to the movies in a while. I guess we all haven't, right? There's the Infinity Stone glove there, right? And that was, Thanos held that for a while. There's Thor's axe that he makes, right? There's Iron Man's thing in the middle. Ryan Reynolds' character, right? Deadpool is in there. And there's the cape from Doctor Strange. I see partial Captain America on there as well. And so, when we think about what makes all of these characters come together, is their unique mix, right? They're always working together and using those unique skills that they have. And that's going to happen in the workplace if you get lucky to find a workplace that values those unique characteristics and allows you to put those characteristics forward. Same thing with volunteerism. All right, so let's look at these character strengths that each of us can possess. Well, we all possess them all. So here we go. Now, I'm not going to read all of these off, but these were scientifically validated by psychologists in the positive psychology program. They've looked at all of these strengths here. And the beautiful thing is that we all possess these strengths to some degree. Now, some of these are really obvious for us. They're really strong for us. They will turn out to be in your top 5. You use them more often than you use the other ones. We call those character strengths. So let's explore those character strengths. Those top 5 are called signature strengths, and let's explore what those look like. Now, before we do that, let's actually come back to our well-being theory again, right? We talked about positive emotions. Can your character strengths serve those? Of course. When you're using your character strengths, it's going to feel good. It's going to make you feel good. When you're using your character strengths, you're going to get more engaged in life. You're going to get more into those flow moments where you get happy and focused, right? You lose track of time. That's a wonderful thing. When you're using your character strengths, you're going to be able to build better relationships with people because they're going to get to see these wonderful attributes you have. Hopefully you see those in them as well. And then you're going to be able to use those character strengths in service to other people. Volunteerism is one aspect of that. Work is another aspect of that. And when you're using your character strengths, you're more likely to achieve. Now remember, there's 24 of these, and that doesn't mean that you don't have the ones at the bottom. They're just not as prominent in you. And when you do this for yourself and you figure out what your character strengths are, you're going to be able to come up with a list of what those character strengths are and then develop your own list on your own time. Develop your own list through that survey tool that you'll see a little bit later. And then when you'll see those, you'll be like, oh, these are my top 5. These are the ones that are at the bottom. And the ones at the bottom aren't your weaknesses. Don't treat them that way. Treat them as just less present strengths for you in a daily basis. But you can actively move those up in your life. Okay, so what are my character strengths? These are my top 5 character strengths through the survey, the VIA Classifications of Strengths Survey. And these are my top 5. And again, we call those signature strengths. So hope is one of mine. Hope and future mindedness are usually clustered together as one of the character strengths. So I have the ability to just be hopeful. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business. It's been a very hard year for my business, but I've been able to use that gift of hope, that character strength of hope, to recognize that better times are going to come. We're going to get through this COVID weirdness. We're going to get through the challenges of Black Lives Matter and get to hopefully some future that is more stable and more understanding and maybe more loving. And I'm hopeful for that. I'm optimistic for that. And I'm also actively working towards making sure that that happens in my own life. I don't just take it for granted that those things will come around. I'm actively working towards that. And that's a characteristic for optimistic people, is that they set really big goals for themselves and bigger goals than pessimists would set for themselves. And they take an active role in making those things happen in their lives. So I'm really happy that it's one of my top 5. Gratitude is another one of mine. Gratitude is one of those great things. So I come from living in poverty. When I was younger, my parents split when I was 5 years old. And my mother left my father. She left with 3 kids. I was the oldest. I was 5 at the time. And she left with 3 kids, 3 quarters, that's 75 cents, and a can of Campbell's soup. And she went on to do great things with her life. She got a grant, she got her nursing degree, she had a really productive career. She's made a great way for herself in this world after a really challenging start of trying to raise 3 kids basically in poverty. And I started in poverty, and so I knew what it was like to not have. Now, my poverty wasn't like a lot of other people's poverty. I still had my family, my father in my life, other people that took care of me. I never went hungry. We didn't always have good food, but I knew what it was like to have good things and recognize that I had it better than other people. And I do this really great activity, and I'll share it with you right now. It's called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm not trying to be an advocate for using your phones all the time, but I do this every day. I did it today. You don't have to do it every day for it to be something that really helps you focus on the good things happening in your life. So it's called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here's how I use it. At 12:34 every day, I have my phone programmed to go off and set a short alarm for me, and it just says 1, 2, 3, 4. And at 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 12:34 p.m. every day, right around the noon hour, I say 5 things that I'm grateful for. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they don't have to be big things. They can be really small things, right, in your life. Like, I'm really grateful that I have a dog. I'm really grateful that I have Wi-Fi. I'm really grateful that I'm getting to do this presentation today. I'm really grateful that I got to have lunch today. I'm really grateful for the fun weekend that I had traveling, right? Those are easy things. And what you're doing is you're rewiring your brain to start seeing more of the positives in the world. Gratitude is a powerful, powerful strength if you have it as a prevalent one for you. Kindness. So most of my career before becoming a professional speaker had been working in nonprofits. And so kindness is really important to me. Giving back to the world, volunteerism has always been something embedded in my life. I always wanted to help other people, and not just through volunteerism, but just random acts of kindness and doing nice things for other people. Acts of kindness come back around for you as well. So the person that does the act of kindness actually gets a boost of happiness just as much or even more than the person they do that act of kindness for. So think about that when you think about your volunteerism as well. And then number 4 is social intelligence. So this is the ability to kind of read other people and pay attention to other people. I recognize when people around me are suffering, so I pay attention for that. I know when people are having a rough day. I take an active role in trying to be, again, kind and help other people out there. And then social intelligence is just one thing I happen to be pretty solid at. And I'm really happy to have that as a natural character strength. Okay, so, and last but not least, maybe not today, maybe not all the time, but humor is my top character strength. It's at the top for me. And you've been putting some LOLs out there for me today, so thank you for appreciating my sense of humor. I love having a sense of humor. Sense of humor is great for connecting with other people. It's a really great tool for alleviating stress in yourself, alleviating stress in other people. I laugh at myself all the time because I do plenty of dumb things in my given day. But humor is a great tool for building relationships with other people, and I really appreciate having that as my top character strength. So the idea here is to try to use these character strengths a lot. And the science says that you should try to use these character strengths, well, as much as you can. And 100% isn't a real goal, isn't really attainable in life necessarily, but this is what they suggest, is 70% of the time you should be using your character strengths. That can be at work, it could be at school, it could be in your volunteerism, it could be in your family life. Wherever you are being, then be yourself. Use those character strengths and bring those out. Now, 70-30% is a great ratio to target for, right? And we can't find 100% of using character strengths all the time. It's just not realistic. But I want you to think about character strengths in the volunteer roles that are put in front of you. When you're thinking about doing something, think about how you get to align those character strengths with those roles. And when you do the activity that you'll have a chance to do later today, you'll get those character strengths and you'll have an opportunity to explore what volunteer roles come out there that are maybe aligned with how you could use those. And I'll come back to some examples for you in just a minute. But why not 100% of the time? Well, it's actually really good for us to struggle a little bit sometimes. Like some of these things that aren't really prominent character strengths for us will be at the bottom. That's number 24, 23, 22, 21. They'll be really low. Like for me, one of the really bad ones down there is stick-to-itiveness on some things. Like I believe I have some tenaciousness, but I'm not always really into the details on things. And you'll see there's probably typos in my work on occasion. I'm really into creating, doing things, being funny, and going with the flow. And that's not always really that aligned with some of those character strengths that show up on the bottom for me. Can I get better at those? Of course I can. That's one of the beautiful things about the human mind. So we have the ability to change how this thing functions all the time. Okay, so it's really good for you to experience those less prominent strengths too from time to time. And when you see them in other people and being like, oh, that's why this person is a good part of the team, because I don't have those character strengths as strong in me as they have them in them. And it's great for them to have those strengths so that we can mold those strengths together into a team that has a mix of all great strengths. That way you're tapping into the full potential of that team. Okay, so let's talk about what happens when you use those character strengths, because I love this. And you'll notice this with me. Like if you're noticing what's going on right now, is that using my character strengths and weaving in humor into what I'm doing is very easy for me to do. It's a very natural feeling, right? It feels like me just being me. It's also effortless for me to do that. It's effortless for me to be kind to other people. I don't have to go out of my way to do that. I just do that as the natural way that I approach my life. There's no struggling. It's just easy for me to do that. And this part here is fun. This last one is energizing, right? When you're using your character strengths, when I'm making other people laugh and you're throwing those LOLs in the chat and engaging with me, like that's energizing for me. It makes me happy. It lights me up. And so I get that just by using my character strengths. Okay, so let's talk about your values briefly. Now, for a lot of you, yes, I understand that you value some of these things on the bottom here. But in the image in the middle here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're familiar with psychology at all, you'll get to understand that some of the things that we value in life, they move up this pyramid from the bottom where it says physiological up to safety and belonging and self-esteem and self-actualization. And that's what I want for you. I want you to be self-actualized, where you pursue your inner talents, your creativity, and your fulfillment, and you find that in this life. And you have to just explore sometimes. And when we talked about those volunteer roles that I did before, I did some volunteering that just didn't work for me. And I had to say, you know what? this isn't the right role for me. I've tried it, I've given it a good shot, and now it's time for me to try some other role. And we're going to talk about why I feel like I'm closer to self-actualization doing these volunteer roles. So it's about those values, and you'll get a chance to explore your values later. But volunteering should serve your values as well as it should serve in your choice for work. And when we're talking about work, when we say, well, Anthony, why are you talking about jobs when the focus for Teen Volunteers in Action is volunteering? Well, because volunteering is a great opportunity for you to find your calling. We'll talk about the word calling in a moment. Is you might find that you have a job, right? And jobs are basically just a paycheck. Or you might find a career, and you might find that that career is more than a job and it's fulfilling in many ways. Or you can find, if you're lucky, through exploration, through using your character strengths, you might find your calling. And calling is basically being called forth to do something that you feel super emotional about. Now, here's the thing. It's not all callings pay really well. And if you want to find the balance between making money and doing valuable things in your life, it may be a mix of a job that's a great career or maybe even a calling at times. But then when you have your free time, you might not want to do those things. Example is that some people love accounting. I hate accounting. I don't really enjoy it. I hire accountants to do that work because they're much better at it and they do it better than me. They do it better than me and they enjoy doing it where I don't enjoy doing it. So I pay other people to do those things. But when accountants, when they're sitting behind a computer all day and they're working on QuickBooks or Excel spreadsheets or whatever they're doing, when they get done with their workday, they might want to do something really different with their volunteer opportunities. And so they volunteer instead in doing different ways, like maybe they work with animals, or maybe they work with the elderly, the aging populations, and they find an opportunity to do something that's different from their career work or the work that they even might call their calling. So it's an opportunity for you to explore those things. And so you hopefully are getting a chance in your volunteerism to use your strengths, see what that feels like, and then think about how that applies to the other side of your daily work, which is the actual work. So let's revisit some of those volunteer positions that I shared with you earlier, because I think you'll get to see how I figured out my career, right? And then of nonprofit work, and then I moved into my calling, and my calling was heightened by me knowing my own character strengths. So how did I use those more? Well, here's those volunteer roles again. So this is the Community Foundation, and before with the Community Foundation, what I was doing, I remember I was reading reports. I don't like reading reports. I don't like that sort of attention to detail. It's not my thing. Other people love that stuff. They find it to be really enjoyable. It's their own character strengths. So that's great. But here's what I did instead. So now I sit on one of their committees, and it's a fundraising committee. I have a long history of doing fundraising work for nonprofits. I like doing that. I like connecting people with missions. I like getting to talk to other people about what the Community Foundation does for our community. I'm a passionate advocate for the community that I live in. And so now I get to help with fundraising. I get to help bring money into that organization. One of the other things that I love doing is public speaking. I've been an MC for a long time now, and the Community Foundation every year throws a concert. And at this concert, they raise money at this concert, they sell tickets for the concert, and they work at this awesome venue called Ibar Ranch, which is in Gunnison, Colorado. It's an old hay barn turned into a concert venue. It has amazing sunsets. It's beautiful. There's no sides on the building, so you get all these beautiful views out there. You get to look at the mountains around the town of Gunnison, and you raise money. And at that position, my volunteer role for them is to stand on stage, to hold a microphone, to tell jokes, strength of humor, and to help raise money for that organization. Way better than reading reports, right? So I get to use my character strengths in service to other people. That gives my life meaning. I get to help my community at the same time. Okay, let's talk about that second example, the Sea Turtle Preservation Society. Remember, this is the one before where I was getting a phone call and it said, hey, we found a dead turtle on the beach. And I had to go take that stinky thing that his life sadly ended and figure out why it died and then take it off and dispose of that. Well, that wasn't very much fun for me. Other people like doing that because they can take care of sea turtles. They can provide good information to the government to help the government understand why turtles are dying, maybe what regulations would help protect turtles. But I really like talking to people. So instead of doing that, recovering those sea turtles, we call that stranding response because a dead turtle is called stranded. I instead, give me an LOL on this one if it gets funny. I love that sea turtle's grabbing onto the snorkel. But I got to give presentations to the public. I love sea turtles. I think they're fascinating creatures. And before people would go on their beach walks at night, they'd get a chance to go out there and learn about sea turtles. They're really amazing creatures, and I get to share my passion, my knowledge with them, and I put up funny slides like this. So I get to use my humor again, and my kindness towards sea turtles came out as well. That's way better than finding dead turtles on the beach. Okay, so Hui Oko'olapoko, this is the group that removes those invasive species, restores watershed health. This is in Hawaii again. So I worked in some really beautiful places in Hawaii on some mountainsides within the Ko'olau Mountains out there, and got to see some beautiful things in the work they did. But maybe the machete and the chainsaw were dangerous things for a fool like me. You saw my home improvement skills with that toilet and the door. And so maybe the better way for me to do this was to, again, talk to the public, because I like sharing information with the public, especially about science. So what I got to do instead is Hui Oko'olapoko needed people to volunteer to work on a boat and to go out on Kaneohe Bay. Kaneohe Bay is one of the most beautiful places in Hawaii. It's the largest semi-enclosed body of water in the state of Hawaii. And I got to get on this boat on a Saturday morning, go out and give a 15-minute presentation to tourists that wanted to know what they were seeing, like these mountains. These are the Ko'olau Mountains in the back. And I get to go snorkeling with sea turtles, live ones, which was better. And so I get to volunteer. I get to help that organization share their message and their mission with people, because what they were doing was protecting watershed health, making sure that the streams that feed into Kaneohe Bay kept that bay nice and clean, safe for coral, clean for sea turtles as well. So you see the difference between those three scenarios and how they all worked out for me. And I had to say, you know what? I tried this one thing with these organizations and it just wasn't working for me. So I changed it up, and then I got to use my character strengths more, and the organization wins and I win at the same time. Okay, so I can tell you all about these character strengths, but you kind of have to figure this out for yourself. And the way for you to figure out this for yourself is to do a little homework. Yes, you're going to have some homework, and some of you don't like homework. I get that. And don't make that face. You can do this homework, and it's going to be fun for you as well. So it's going to be fun, but you have to do the homework. And so a little bit later today, you're going to get an email from me, and that email is going to give you the opportunity to explore your own character strengths. It's a free survey. It's an easy survey. You'll just answer some questions, and then that's going to generate a list for you of those character strengths, so that you can understand you. And remember that when we talk about you getting you, sorry, I'm going to go forward one more, is that those character strengths is about you getting you, and I think that's a really important thing for understanding what's going to make you happy, so that you can be happy, you know yourself, and then you can lead yourself. You can make decisions in your own life to bring more things into your life that will make you happy, so that you can, by doing that, you're leading yourself. And then when you are feeling content, then you can think about helping other people. But when you're stressed out and you're freaking out and you're not happy and you're angry about things, you're not in a position to help other people. I would still tell you to go volunteer and find someone that needs help more than you do right then, because it's going to make you feel better. Those acts of kindness are really powerful. But if you're really stressed out, well, I've got a resource for that too, and this is free, and you'll get this in the email later today as well. An opportunity to get this Get Happy Now guide. It's a guide focused on helping you deal with stress. It's funny, it's interactive, it's fast-paced, and it's meant to show you how to deal with stress. Stress is common for all of us, right? And then how to build resilience, so that you can get through more of those tough moments in life. Remember that post-traumatic stress disorder that I talked about before? That's something that comes into our lives. We all are going to experience some degree of traumatic events in our life, and how we respond to those is how we grow. So I want you to understand that you can grow through those and become more resilient and deal with the trauma that's going to just keep coming in our lives, right? Stress is just a part of the human existence. So we use optimism in this ebook. It's a really great tool, and optimism is really fun. And you get to play with those superheroes before, of optimism guy and pessimism man. There's also anxiety girl in there as well, and she's not a whole lot of fun as well. All right, so there's an opportunity for you to know yourself, lead yourself, get stress out of the way if you need it. And that's the end of our presentation. With that, I just want to say thank you for your LOLs, thank you for your attention. And I'll turn it back over to Melissa for some final comments from TVIA, and I'll hang out for a few minutes if you have questions.
Thanks, Anthony. Thank you so much. What a great talk. Really appreciate your time today. And thank you all for listening. If you didn't already, put your first and last name in the chat. Please do that. You don't have to do it again if you already did it. But thanks again for joining. I don't have any more announcements, but we appreciate it. Well, I guess I do. I have one more. We have 2 more teen seminars coming up. So check the teen seminar calendar. One's coming up in November, and it's on financial literacy. And then we have an awesome one coming up in December on cooking.
Oh, fun.
And that's it. Yep.
Great. Well, thanks. I'll leave the chat open for just a little bit, and I'll hang out for a few minutes for anybody that has questions. And thank you, Melissa, for giving me this opportunity to share with your group.
We loved it. Thank you.
All right, I'll stick around for anyone that has questions. And again, look for an email from me a little bit later with an opportunity to dive a little deeper into character strengths and finding some really great volunteer opportunities that fit with your values and align with your strengths. Thank you, everyone.